Okay, welcome. I'm Jeanette Yoff, the founder of Celia Center. It was named after my birth mother, Celia, when I reunited with her in 2002. And so tonight we have a special entertainment program for you from Celia Center. And so Celia Center, let me just tell you what it is. We are a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles, and we serve all members of the adoption constellation. And that is birth parents, adoptees, foster and adoptive parents, and those serving our community. That could be nurses, social workers, therapists, administrators, who want to understand better what is best practice in adoption. So Celia Center, you probably see all my posts on Facebook. We have support groups, mental health conferences on all things adoption, including biological reunions, open adoption, and adoptee voices programs. And that includes arts festivals. And the arts are very close to my heart. And tonight we have some special entertainment for you. And the arts really help us transform our pain into something digestible, understandable, and helping us with our mental health. It helps us transform our pain into something new and different, where we can feel differently about our experiences and experience ourselves differently moving forward. So tonight we have a special guest I want to welcome, a formerly fostered fellow adoptee who experienced reunion. She's a singer-songwriter, Jenni Alpert, otherwise known as her birth name, Cami, and she's here to share her amazing story of how she found and reunited with her birth father, Don, 5 years ago. And their story is quite unique because when she found him, he was living homeless downtown Los Angeles. He was running from the law. He was addicted, yet he was also a musician like her. And through their unconditional love and extraordinary partnership, details his amazing transformation, which we are going to learn about this evening. So we will have a chance to hear a bit of Don's take on things, because he represents the voice of the first birth father, as well as asking Jenni a few questions about her experience and her new memoir. But first, she will open our entertainment part of this program with an original song called Constellations, about the adoption constellation. So we welcome now Jenni Alpert, otherwise known as Cami. Welcome, Jenni.
Hi, Jeanette. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are having a good Saturday evening. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll start off with the song called Constellations, written with Jenni Alpert. Where are you in my constellation? Have you been searching to celestial bodies of creation? Each of us longing for the truth. Remnants of these broken planets scattered through the universe, like asteroids of ancient granite, in endless cycles of rebirth. All we are shining stars, suspended in a boundless sky. Don't you know we're not too far to heal what's just beneath? Together, you and me. These primal wounds can keep us from finding home. Cosmic shades of second chances, rays of hope around the sun, making peace with circumstances, hoping for peace for everyone. 'Cause all we are shining stars, suspended in a boundless sky. Don't you know we're not too far to heal? It's just beneath. Together, you and me. These primal wounds can keep us from finding home. Inside the telescope, all is magnified. Labels of time and space across the great divide. Beyond the distant starlight beam, where nothing's what it seems, there is no gravity. 'Cause all we are shining stars, suspended in a boundless sky. Don't you know we're not too far to heal what's just beneath? All we are shining stars, suspended in the boundless sky. Don't you know we're not too far to heal what's just beneath? Together, you and me. These primal wounds can't keep us from finding home.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful. Wow, you did amazing.
Thank you.
Hi, Jenni.
Hi.
Welcome. We are live on Facebook.
Right. Hello, everyone. Live on Facebook. We are here with Celia Center this evening in honor of my birth father, Don Logston. So many of you have been so wonderful at supporting our journey the last 5 years. Just posting so many family fun field trips and adventures, and Don and his amazing transformation, his self-proclaimed transformation, I like to say. Yes, it was an amazing journey, and he added so much to my life. And I think that a lot of people have come to me in the last several months since his passing and have really, said how much life. And that's a really special thing, is to feel inspired by someone. And with Dawn having come from a very different place than I was fortunate to be adopted into, and then to combine our dichotomies and partner together, and just have this wonderful story that's unique and different. I think not every adoptee who was adopted out of the foster care system like I was, and had a whole other life, have the luck to find a birth parent in the first place and then connect with them as deeply as we were able to. And we just had such a positive story, and I just want to share it because Don was brave, and he was extraordinary, and he broke the mold, and he really just took any stigma surrounding homelessness or being in prison, or really coming from a different place where there wasn't a lot of support financially in his world. So he made his way his own way, or biological reunions, or being in foster care or adopted. There's a lot of stigma or thoughts or concerns or curiosities, and I am so proud to present a short video called Dawn's Take. It's like an abridged version, to show how Don was brave, and he chose to come with me and perform with me, and he spoke to people experiencing homelessness with Hope of the Valley, and he spoke to people who were in foster care and who were adopted like me, and people who had children and had to or chose to give them up because they couldn't raise them, or people who were adopting children, or people who were interested in reunions. And he just had so many brilliant things to say and share. So now Celia Center is going to go ahead and click on this video. It's a short video. It shares Don speaking to different demographics, and it sort of shares a neat take, his unique take on different things, specifically adoption and foster care and birth parents and reunions. And then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about, this is my memoir. It's called Home is Where the Heart Is, an adoption and biological reunion story, a memoir. There's excerpts by Dawn in here as well, lots of pictures, and it's available online on Amazon, and I give them away in public. And so, yeah, so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about Dawn and how we use creative solution solving suggestions together to partner and just, transition through all these different experiences. And so, yeah, that's it. So thanks, Jeanette. We'll go ahead and catch Dawn's take for a little while, and we'll be back.
Excellent. Okay, here's Dawn's take. We're going to share this now. It's 30 minutes. You may want to get some tissues and a nice cup of hot cocoa or tea, so you can hear Don sharing his intimate relationship with Cami. Otherwise, oh, hold on.
Full screen, right?
Yes. We are. Here we go. Beautiful.
Suddenly, I'm naked again, in the very same room as my child then. Only now I'm sitting beside the edge. Cage blankets, innocent wine, denying voice hidden there all the while. Only now I'm not so far from there. Should believe in something, but something's out of reach. I want to believe in something more than the nothings we're made to believe. See that happiness is all I'm supposed to need. Well, I'll lie to them all to keep myself free, wondering what's really happening, collecting all the pieces that bring me back to this place besides this child's cage. Should believe in something, but something's out of reach. I want to believe in something more than the nothings we're made to believe. Oh, oh.
45 years. I've never had a house. Even since I was a little boy, I used to run away and go live in the bushes. That was my regular thing. I've always been homeless. The very first time since I've been on this planet that I'm not homeless is with her. Other than that, I would automatically run away and go live homeless because I didn't want to deal with the cops, the parole officer, the probation officer, so I would just run. And abscond until they catch me. And then do the time and get out and abscond again. I never really understood freedom like this. It's a different life. I don't have any keys I could offer to homeless people that you can have a different life. But what I'm just bringing to your attention is it can be done. You would have to want to do it, if that's what you want. Homelessness and having a house is within reach. You can choose. If you need to hook up with a friend or a family member, I would advise you to do it. Learn to get along with them if you have to. Quit doing the heroin and cocaine if you have to, like I did. I mean, let's be real about it. Yeah.
Do you have any other kids you're looking forward to?
No, I have no other children in this life at all. I did that with Mary Lou and then went right to jail. 9 months later, Mary Lou gave birth to her, and she went to Metropolitan State Hospital, so California put her in the adoption agency. Meanwhile, she was in foster home. See? She never actually was raised by us. So when I found her, I didn't know what to think, I didn't know what kind of life that she understood and what her way of life and wants and desires and so on and so forth. So certainly, with the opportunity, I got a chance to get to know my daughter. That's exactly what I did. She has this life here in the Hollywood area, or Hollywood Hills area, whatever you call this area, the Studio City area, whatever area happens to be, which was far better than the area that I had, which was taken in the bushes by the gambling casino, supporting myself playing poker and all that kind of stuff. So we talked about it and reasoned, hey, look, if I walk in jail and clean up my act and straighten out my problems with probation, after all, I was on the run from probation, in addition to everything else. But maybe we can hook up together and maybe put some music together and she can get me off of the streets. And with that, I'd have an opportunity to just start developing and living a little bit better and cleaning up my act. I cut loose with all the hard drugs. I don't know if I should mention it or not. But to just not be honest with you, man, hooking up with my daughter made all the difference in the world for my life.
Want you to feel wanted all of the time. Show you good loving so you know you're mine. One of these days, and it won't be long, all of these shadows, oh, they'll be gone. Want you to see deep in my heart, show you the truth, love from the start. One of these days, and it won't be long, our love won't be hidden in a love song. You pick me up as I swallow my pride. You teach me to love when love abides. won't you lie for me? I will lie for you. One of these days, and it won't be long. All of these shadows, oh, they'll be gone. One of these days.
Yeah, for people that were adopted and think that they were just dropped off and left out and nobody loved them and just kicked out of the family's life. Well, look at it this way. What if the family just ran out of supplies and really couldn't take care of you? Well, then in that case, you're going to be adopted somewhere, so what the hell are you going to do about it? Somebody's going to raise you. What damn difference does it make who it is?
And maybe they got, you said, the better end of the stick or something?
Yeah, being that they were adopted out might have helped them out as the better end rather than the family trying to keep when they can't be kept. Like in my case, I went to jail. I had no way to raise you, but I at least knew that. That's why I wasn't sitting in jail heartbroken about it. I knew I wasn't going to be able to raise you. If the parents run out of supplies or get in trouble or come up with no way they can care for the kid, then the smartest thing they can do is to search out adoption agencies to try to help their kid get into the best adoption they can and meet up with them later in years, once they're an adult. So you don't got to worry about trying to raise them.
What would you want adoptees to know or to think or to feel if they're really sad and upset and feel like they didn't get to meet their family or they didn't get to be raised by their family?
I would tell them to search out why, because it's no doubt a different reason than they think. A lot of them, the girl ended up turning the pleasure of sex into a pregnancy that she had not one grain of sand in her brain what's going to happen and pop up pregnant and don't have a clue what she's going to do with it. So they automatically just leave them in an adoption or some kind of an agency because they can't do anything else. They didn't even mean to get pregnant.
Yeah.
I got to deal with that problem.
Mm-hmm. Or men sometimes don't even...
Yeah, they find out their chick popped up pregnant, they split on them.
What made you want to meet me, stay with me?
Because my mind was made up before I did that with Mary Lou. That's exactly how I wanted it to untangle, run into you 30 years later and see how you fared in life. See how the people, I was lucky. You got raised by some pretty out of sight people. I mean, maybe they weren't lucky. Got adopted by somebody that didn't even like them and treated them like shit. I mean, anything could have happened. But I'll tell you what, if you're ever going to be independent, you're going to have to not give a fuck about all that. I got here, that's all I give a fuck about. I'll take over the steering wheel for myself from here. Thank you for everything you did and didn't do and all that. No hard feelings, I'm gone. That's it.
So when I showed up that day, 2016, you weren't really surprised?
None at all.
Pretty cool.
I had been waiting for that to happen.
And so that's exactly what the reality was, that when she was adopted out, I wasn't surprised at all. I knew that was coming. I was grateful when I found out that she was adopted out by a prominent family that took real good care of her. All the more grateful when 2016 came around and I finally ran into her and was able to meet her and learn the details of her upbringing. The Alberts out didn't, for one thing. I couldn't have brought her up as good as the Alberts did. Running around on drugs and running from law and all that, how could I have been a solid father? There was no way that was going to work. So when she was adopted, that was just part of the plan. I didn't feel like my daughter was ripped off out of my hands at all. I knew from the beginning that I wasn't going to be there for her, before I even had the sex. So I wasn't hurt about that my daughter was taken from me. I was grateful, as crazy as that may sound. I knew I couldn't raise her, but someone else would do this for me, rather than to just leave her in the gutter until she dies. Because I wasn't there, man. I wasn't there. There was nothing I could do. So when the years went by and I ran into her, I was grateful.
And I'm drowning in your wisdom. Why did I listen? Now I'm caught in memories of you. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal. Don't wanna do what I should. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal. Don't want to be good for you. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal. Don't wanna do what I should. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal. Don't want to be good for trying to remember what you said to me, sitting next to me, spending our whole lives making up for what our parents did. Try to get over and embrace the days in my heart so big. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal, don't wanna do what I should. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal, don't want to be good for you. Embrace the silence, but I put you there, empty and screaming. Never know what it feels to give love while receiving. Traces wasted on my face, drunk and I'm drowning in your wisdom. Why did I listen? Now I'm caught in memories of you. Heaven is a I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal, don't wanna do what I should. Heaven is a place right now. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal, don't want to be good for you. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal, don't wanna do what I should do. Heaven is a place I'm running from. Don't know what's real, don't think I'll heal, don't want to be good for you. Thank you so much for having us. We've got 2 more songs for you. Your boss is telling you to stay. Your wife is telling you to leave. Your brother's telling you to move. No one's listening. You got no words left to say. You don't know what to do. The feeling is the same. They're not hearing you. They think they all know. Your story goes, but you're the dreamer of your own dreams. So listen to your heart. Oh, listen to your heart. Your heart's where to start. So listen to your heart, your heart, your heart. Your friends tell you what to think. Your mind wants to be free. Oh, Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Let's do it one more time really loud. Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart.
Listen to your heart.
Listen to your heart. You know it's time to make a change for all the change we left to chance instead. So take a step now, forward to the side now, and don't you mind how to get ahead. 'Cause all we need is love, love. All we need is love, love. All we need is love, love. Don't you know we're just people floating in the same boat, sifting through the same notes to sing our songs? Yeah, we're all just people wearing the same coats, looking for the same roads to move along. Becoming our own TVs, living like we're movies, hopes and dreams just pages in magazines. Believing that we're happy, fingertips from real things, thinking this is all we need, when all we need is love, love.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us at Celia Center this evening. This has been an incredible journey for Don and Jenni, her father. And so now we're going to hear from Jenni, and we're going to be able to have a Q&A with her and ask her some questions, how she found her birth father living downtown LA, how she got him off the streets, incredibly, how she got him to trust her. And this is really a unique reunion story. And it's very special. And that's why I really wanted to have Jenni here tonight talking with us so we can understand better, how did she do this? It's an incredible story. And I love that you brought Don to the Grand Canyon and he got to rock out. How much fun that must have been for both of you.
It was fun.
Incredible. Incredible story. So I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
So tell us, how did you find Don and what made you decide to go look for your birth father? That's always a big question for adoptees.
Sure. Well, I knew I was adopted because I was in foster care until I was 4. I was moved around and then I was finally adopted in my forever home. Incidentally, I was lucky I arrived at a home with a piano and parents who weren't musical, but they were very thoughtful and gave me a lot of lessons and direction. And that was really amazing. So I was such loving people to adopt me and raise me and become my mother and father, my parents. They gave me so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I always knew I was adopted and I always knew that I had a lineage. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't really know much about my birth mother or my birth father. But there were court cases that followed my adoption. So there was a paper trail. And then when I was in college, while my father was struggling with cancer, actually, my birth mother died. And I didn't know that. I hadn't met her yet. But when she passed away, there was another court case about that.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting because my birth mother's whole family had very similar ethics and values as the family I ended up being adopted in. And they never forgot that I existed, those that knew. And they wrote me into this estate as a benefactor for when my birth mother passed away as the living child, even though I had been adopted out and our relationship legally had been severed and I didn't know them and they didn't know me. They still had my best interest in mind. And a lawyer in Denver and a lawyer in California, and they partnered together and they worked with the system. And I believe they participated in helping federally open up the doors for adoptees to be allowed to be benefactors and to inherit if that's something that the birth parents want to choose. And that was way before open adoptions and all that, but it really was, surfacing. It was real closed and private at the time. So but then that opened a whole door of this packet of information with all these names and details and stories. And around that time I was turning 18 and my mom finally was going to tell me this. And so she told me all these things and handed me these packets of papers that had names and stories and history and all this stuff. And it was a lot and it was really interesting. And a lot of people sort of shied me away from learning too much about the paternal side at that time. So, and I was so grateful. It wasn't that it was this huge inheritance. It wasn't that. It was just the concept, the thought that somebody thought of me and cared. And in those legal papers, it read, Cameron Morantz was my birth name. That was supposed to be my name. And then it got changed to Jennifer in foster care and then shortened to Jenni when I was adopted. And then Jenni Alpert became sort of a singer-songwriter music thing that titled my music as I developed that. And then I came to really love that name, Cameron. And so anyways, I met a lot of my birth mother's relatives that were living for the first few years that I don't talk about that much, but in the memoir I do. And they were super interesting and super amazing. And I learned about them, but I didn't really know much about my birth father. I didn't know his lineage at all at that time and didn't know he was a musician. I didn't even know if he was alive. And I just sort of focused on the maternal part. And then I think something changed for me when I was really interested in exploring why I struggled having relationships with men, why it was hard for me to cultivate intimacy and long-term connection, and how to develop the kind of relationship that could transpire into maybe creating a family, or what was that? What is that? And I sort of thought, maybe if I knew my birth father lineage, who he was, where he came from, I might have a better understanding of where I come from and my identity and who I am, just like this missing piece. I was just curious. And then I don't know, I just thought maybe I'll do that. So I had a summer off with nothing to do. At the time I was living in downtown LA in a little flat right off the metro, where the metro was just rolling in 2016. And with the help of a private investigator, through my inner circle people, they helped me with the court cases that I had and the name and stuff. And it's not difficult to find people through their social security number, especially when they've been in and out of prison for drugs. And a lot, you have to use your social security for everything. So if you get food stamps, if you're on GR, if you have, any record of whatever, if there's an address that you might get mail at or something like that, it's not difficult to track down your existence. But then to find the person, that's a whole other journey. So I got another packet of information, and I just kind of went undercover and did reconnaissance and researched and followed all the different addresses that Don seemingly crossed paths with throughout his life, and called a phone number that was on there, and somebody answered, and then I got scared and hung up. And then a couple months later, I decided to call again, and no one answered, and it turned out that was my birth grandmother, and she passed away. And that there was a dwelling of sorts in Long Beach, where most of them were birth family members or friends of them, or neighborhood folk that were there, or it was sort of like a space that lots of people kind of passed through. And but I had special family members that were there in certain areas that had their own space, and I just found that really interesting, and I wanted to meet whoever they were. I wanted to just meet them. So I went down there a couple times without meeting anybody, and then I went the third time, and I saw some man swooping outside, and I thought, was that my birth father? And I approached him, and turned out that it wasn't my birth father. And I asked, and then it was my birth uncle, and I knew enough of the stories with the legal papers that was a guess that was him. And so I just said, oh, well, is my birth father alive? Is he here? And he was alive. So I knew that piece. And then he said, well, he's not here. Who wants to know? I didn't actually say, is my birth father? I just said, is Dawn here? Well, who wants to know? Or, well, are you Dawn? Who are you? You must be Jimmy. Well, then who are you? And I said, well, and then I got nervous to say who I was, because I didn't ask them yet. Can I enter into your life? So then I rephrased it, and I said, well, do you think Dawn would be open to meeting a family member? I was I didn't even say daughter yet. And then, and then he was like, we know all of our family. Who are you? And then he was like, wait. And he looked at me, and then I think he kind of, because I resemble my birth mother a little bit, or a lot, I don't know. And so anyway, that was that. And then I had a relationship with Jimmy, my birth uncle, and couple days later, as I kept returning and going back, Don would go to that area and get his mail. And there was an outdoor space that he really preferred to be in for the fresh air and for his own little space. And then he would go out into the bushes. Actually, he loved living outside. He would go towards casinos and take his food stamps and get money that way. He was really good at math and probability. He was just very savant and smart. So he had this whole get up going on. And then all of a sudden one day he's sleeping in this space, and I show up, and it's in the morning, and Jimmy's like, well, there's your birth father. There's Don. And then he wakes up, and we lock eyes, and we just love each other instantly. And it was just amazing. And I think that because I had a lot of previous experience working with people experiencing homelessness, I built a program for the men's correctional facility, downtown jail, and helped with transitioning with that program. I volunteered a lot in different areas, working with high functioning autism or unique learning creative, people that just function in a bit of a different way, savant types, and had a lot of tools under my belt and a lot of confidence to just kind of go in a unique solution solving kind of way. And I didn't even say my name is Jenni Alpert. I was just like, I'm Cami. I just went by my birth name, and he knew that. He knew the name Cameron. He didn't know my other name. He didn't know I was a musician. And then he was a musician, and it was just like, wow. So for 3 weeks, while he was still living on the streets and sort of doing his whole life the way he was, I went to him and sort of learned him and took notes and observed him, and we shared stories until late at night, and it was thrilling and so much fun. There was a time where I even brought him to play music with me, and it was just like amazing. So, and that was the beginning of 5 years. Like, and he decided to turn himself in because it was a bit dangerous at that point for me to be out there, and there was gangs and drugs and prostitution of street life. And I was there, and, you know, and he really cared and wanted to protect me. And he chose to change his life. He chose to turn himself in, stop using. He went for like 90 days, letters every day for like 90 days, picked him up on October 5th. And then that was it. And that was like the beginning of the rest of our very unique partnership, where he let me advocate for him and be his shadow, which means that I didn't always interact directly with him in social situations. Rather, I would step back and kind of give him the self-reliance to operate the way he wanted to. But then if something seemed like it might benefit a person who had a little more experience in that particular social experience with those people, I would step in and kind of guide him or represent him or whatever it was. And that was like, he trusted me and let me do that. It was amazing. And then, yeah, and for like a long time, I shadowed him all the way through probation. So he got off of probation and out of the legal system for the first time since he was 9. I mean, he had been in over 9 or prisons or something, and mostly for drug use or related drug crimes. And, you know, I mean, he did a lot in his life in his own way. And then I had this dichotomous situation, going to UCLA, studying music, being a singer, you know, making music. That was the thing that was interesting. So we were 6 degrees very, very often. My first time ever in a studio making a record was in Long Beach, walking distance from where I found him later. Or there was a lot of times when I was volunteering downtown LA at the homeless shelter down there with the women's downtown women's center, or I might be at the male jail doing my program, and very easily Don would be like walking right there, like scoring to do his thing. So, you know, we talked a lot about that in our 5 years, and the, you know, just our fun like parallels. But the best part about it was that we were made from the same cloth. He wasn't that older than me. He was 16 when he invented me. So he was, 60 by the time he just recently passed away. And so that's been a little bit hard, but we had time to talk about that. And that whole Grand Canyon bit was his last concert. And I went there to show him life is grand and we don't have to be sad. And he felt that way. He always would tell me, you get 5 years, you get 5 years. And he passed away almost 5 years to the date that we met. And he would say, I don't want to grow old. I don't want to, have you, be dependent on me, or, me be dependent on you, or, you have to give for me to the point where I can't care for myself. And so that was, it was a really profound relationship that shaped probably the rest of my life, shaped me. Yeah, he gave me so much. At the end, it wasn't just me helping him, and he didn't want to say that. Like, I don't want our story to just be that you found your birth father, your father out of the and pulled him out of the gutter. You went back for him. Like, you what did he say? You went back for him, or you made a U-turn and went back for your father. But and that's another thing that we can talk about too, if you want, which is Celia Center has a real caring, thoughtful way of addressing individuals that are part of the adoption constellation. And it's a good conversation to have, because I do reference Don often as my birth father, whereas I reference my dad, whose name was Bill, who adopted me and raised me and helped me as my dad. And Don was always cool with that. And sometimes we would pass by where my dad is buried, and we both waved like, hi, Bill. And it was really amazing in 5 years to be able to bring Don through my entire childhood and adult life and present moment. And every minute that we spent, we created moments that were the rest of our story for the rest of our life together. And that was so thrilling. And so what a privilege. And so that was pretty amazing. So yeah, I would call him my birth father, or the Don, or the inventor of me. And I feel like, language is really important. It doesn't strip us of anything. Rather, it sort of highlights the strengths and the relationship that we have to each other, which is also kind of how I feel about names. Sometimes I'm Jenny or Jenni Alpert or Jen or Poofnik that my brother would call me, or I was Cami with Dawn, and we were Cami and Dawn, the biological duo, because that was my intended name. And, you know, I just, it was really special to have that together. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, I mean, wow, what an incredible story. Most people would be apprehensive about going downtown, finding your birth father, approaching him, right? Because that could be a second rejection. It's very, very scary for adoptees to approach their birth parents if there's nothing established that he knows you, he didn't know you, but when you locked eyes, you made a very deep and intimate connection. And I think Don is very special because he was able to see you as someone who he could trust and seek solace and support in. And he surrendered in a way to you. He trusted you. And I think for any of birth parents or anyone thinking about adoption, you know, we need our birth parents to know that we will find you, we will search for you, and we want to know that you want to know us. You want to be a part of our lives. It doesn't mean we need you to be our parents. We want to connect with you. We want to know our lineage, our ancestry, where we come from. And for you, when you first found him, and you didn't know this, but he was a musician too. How incredible to have that connection.
It was so cool. Oh, it was like almost validating.
Yeah, so validating.
It really was, because I never really identified. I mean, I am a musician. I write songs. I feel like I'm more of like a performer and entertainer. And I never really identified as a musician. I don't know why. And
really? Until you met him, you didn't identify as a musician.
I don't think of myself as like a musician. I think of myself as an entertainer that can play some instruments. You know, and Don is a musician and he's an entertainer, but because I've met so many musicians who are so diehard about it. They listen to music, they eat, sleep, and drink it. They know everything about music. They know who played what, when, where, in every genre, and they know everything about the instrument and all these things. And like, even if those things, I forget them. I barely remember the songs right, let alone what other people write. So I don't know. And also, you know, I grew up
so it broke up a little bit. So
what? Oh, I was going to say, I grew up in a non-religious cultural Jewish home where music wasn't the focal point there anyway. It was just, you know, whatever. They just fostered any of my creative arts. And so then later when I was at UCLA and I decided to write songs and become a songwriter and all that bit, and then eventually like really molded into I like identified with Americana music, soul pop, whatever. And then, you know, I mean, I've always loved boots and hats, and like there's this whole thing where eventually I ended up in Nashville, like this Jewish girl from the Valley with boots and a hat in Nashville. And it did feel a little bit like, what's going on here? Like, am I just like playing a part? I mean, because I could do it. I loved it there. And then it was really fun and thrilling to come back to LA and then have this whole journey of looking for and finding my birth father, finding out our lineage is actually like Scottish to English to then like Texas and Tennessee. And there's music all over my birth father's lineage. And I'm like, oh, so it's like legit. It was just really fun to like connect the pieces.
Right, now it like gives you permission. Yeah, it gives you permission to be the musician you want to be.
Well, I don't know about that.
It validates your talent.
I never really felt like I needed permission, but it validated the fact that like it wasn't just made up out of my mind. Like it just really was a piece of my spirit. Right. And I could really see, once I got to spend all this time with Dawn, I could see the components of like what was from Dawn's lineage and what was from my birth mother, Mary Lou's lineage, and then what was fostered and supported and developed through my parents, my Jill and Bill, who adopted me. And like, it's so fun. Yes. And the adoption constellation, and we talk about all the components and the pieces. And another thing I just wanted to mention, because you said something, so I may be a unique adoptee because I've never felt rejected. I never felt like my birth parents rejected me. I never had resentment. I never had anger. None of that ever crossed my mind ever. I never thought of that. I did feel like a black sheep though, in the Alpert family because I was seeing them.
Mhm.
And I felt a hole. I felt an emptiness. I felt a disassociation that could have been partly from being in so many foster homes and just in foster care in general, and then being adopted. I mean, that in general. And like, you know, back in that time, there wasn't really like therapists that specialize in adoption and in foster care. There was therapy and there was, you know, all of those components there, but it wasn't what it is now. And so, you know, I just felt very discombobulated and strange all the time, just really strange. I felt comfortable on stage, in theater, in music. I just didn't feel comfortable in life. And then UCLA was a good experience. It was lovely. I was invited to be the first jazz vocalist to Kenny Burrell's jazz program, which I thought was crazy because I was like, do they even know I can't read music? Like, what is this? But it happened. And UCLA in general was amazing and it shaped me. I never even thought to go to college there. I wanted to go to New York, NYU. New York was my dream. And then later when I met Don, and his nickname, Manhattan Don, because New York was his dream, I just thought, oh my God. And then when I was in college, I had a pet rat. This is so random, but like I had a pet rat named Dimitri that I would bring with me to school just to be weird. And then when I met Don, he was like, I had pet rats too. And it was just like, there's just so many bizarre things. And then to be able to like partner together. And so, you know, and I want to say one other thing though too, because when you said that about the whole rejection thing, I think it's important to honor and to mention that every adoptee has their own story, their journey, their own pain, their own voice, their own everything. And then if they do have that opportunity for a biological reunion and they meet a birth mother or a birth father or a birth sibling or whatever is in their story, sometimes it doesn't go well. It's even hard.
Right.
And I know that for the birth family members that I met first in my maternal story that I don't talk about that much, but it's not because they're not important and that's not significant. It's just that they were cousins all over the country that were like extensions of my birth mother. And it was fun and fruitful because there are a lot of similarities in different ways. And that was fun. But then all of a sudden to find like the dude who invented me, he was 16 and he got to hold me in his arms for like 3 seconds before the police were like, all right, so you were the birth father, can get the paternal test is right, okay, you're going back to prison for stealing the car, you know, and all the things that you do and your heroin, blah, 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 but here, you know, she's going here, and that was it. And then there was like, we weren't ever like connected ever again. And it wasn't even like my whole life I was like, who's my birth father? I don't know that I formulated it that way. I really don't think so. It was just almost like an aha moment one day. And then going, and I didn't know he was alive either. And then when I did find out, and then I got to sit there and look at him, I actually read letters that he was writing to his brother from prison a day or two before I returned for the third time to actually meet him. And it was in the letters that Don wrote that I saw a person that had a heart and intelligence and compassion. And I saw a person who didn't have so many opportunities that I was granted. He didn't go to school really, even school. And a lot of it was he chose. There was reasons he chose not to. People weren't very nice to him. Back then, if you have a learning disability, if you might be on the autistic spectrum or high functioning Asperger, or I don't know, we never know what everyone is or anyone is. And Dawn and I never used terms like that. I just kind of used an umbrella concept of possibly spectrum because it kind of collected the idea that he was unique and a savant and like creative and high functioning and brilliant in his own way. We didn't really need terms. We just wanted solutions and suggestions in present moment. And he was just so grateful and happy to have somebody care.
Okay, you're breaking up a bit. So, yeah.
Sorry. Huh?
So let's see if there's any questions from the audience that are curious more about how you did this. I mean, how did you bring him into your home? And so let's open it up to the audience and see if anyone has any questions. Put it in the chat in Zoom or underneath the Facebook chat so we can see. Okay. So in I think people are more listening. They're taking this all in. This has been incredible. It's a journey. There's a lot to share here. What is something that, well, I think you've said it before, that, you know, each adoptee has their own story, and we want to respect that. You know, yours is a unique story. Don, if we can say, was very special. He lived with you for 5 years. You got to share music together. You got to live with him. You supported him, and he recently passed away. And I think people need to know that this really, putting this together tonight is very special, because we're also honoring Don's life. And Jenni brought him to the Grand Canyon, and that was his last concert. Right, Jenni?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's very special.
Because after the first year where, you know, we developed this partnership where I was sort of advocating and shadowing him and picking up the pieces of learning social services and helping kind of build him a stability there. He never had a bank account, so I opened one of mine and then just managed, and then and then basically upstreamed him eventually to SSI, and his first doctor relationship ever. We built one of those and got him a PO box with an address. We had his own the proper ID to kind of sever the whole Long Beach bit, because it was healthier and safer to kind of migrate west and be closer together. And by the way, it wasn't that I just like adopted my birth father who was homeless right off the streets, right off the bat. I mean, there was a good, after he turned himself in and then got released and I picked him up on October 5th, there was a good 2 months that we tried different things as I still continued to get to know him and take inventory of his skills and his talent and his education level and his processing level, his communication and his emotional well-being and what he really wanted. And there was a sense of independence still before our interdependent dynamic that was built, that was very successful. But before that, I created like a sort of a mock homeless space for a few weeks to transition him indoors, because he really never even had a room of his own. So, I mean, I would blindfold him. He didn't know where I lived for a long time. And it was sort of this solution solving suggestion we agreed upon, that he could always go back to his homeless life however and whenever he wanted. But if he wanted to come into where I was in this safe space, that we would, kind of blindfold him in, and he would come in with me. And then, if he ever wanted to leave, we would let him leave without knowing where to come back to in case he wanted to do drugs. I just kind of kept a protective veil for quite a while. And we also did another fun thing where I called it Safe Space Don's Place, where we had a portable chair, an umbrella, and a little backpack. He was a savant in chess. He was so great with chess. And so I got this little chess set for him that was magnetized. So like the dogs and people, no one could knock over his game. And he would play with all the great chess players who passed on. He had all these books before I met him, and then we kept getting more. And they had all the Grandmaster games, and he would play Grandmaster against Grandmaster all by himself for hours. And he did dice later on, and he always found probability for that. So he had all these special talents that he loved to focus on. And then there was music, and he would take music pedals and fix them, broken ones. He was good with electronics and wiring, and he was so proud to show me his way. And over the course of time, as we were getting to know each other and building Don's stability, I brought him into my life and what I had been doing before I met him with the volunteering. So I brought him in, and we volunteered at the Downtown Women's Shelter, and I shadowed him volunteering, and he sort of started to see the other side of all of a sudden pivotaling his position. So no longer was he receiving social services from the street life that he had, but now he was able to kind of have a support system and shift and be able to support other people and share his story with them. And I think that piece is the most extraordinary part of it, because we went to
definitely
times and dinners, and he would perform and speak, and I would help him. He learned all of my music, and then he had a heavy metal bit. And we would just kind of partner it up, and we had this show we put together, and we started performing at different homeless shelters and centers. We found Hope of the Valley in the Valley just by chance 5 years ago. They weren't what they are today. Today, they're pioneering tiny homes and shelters and family shelters and bridge homes for so many people now. They're like literally one of the lead nonprofits here in the Valley, and probably for homelessness at this time, and they let us be their darlings. We started out performing at their lunchtime concerts. We became like their Thanksgiving feast feature. They put us on the news. We were on national news. Dawn got to talk about our story on national news with NBC. I mean, that was really amazing. Wow. And then after that, a documentary team had been following us a bit in the beginning, and they created the short documentary called Homeless Soundtrack, which incidentally should be coming out sometime, maybe January. It's taken a little while because of the pandemic, but it features the early stages of Dawn and I meeting, and Dawn still on the street, and us playing music together, and just sort of little tidbits and pieces of me sort of shadowing him and advocating for him through this transformation. And ultimately, UCLA gave him dentures, teeth for free. He was the first homeless person, identifiably a homeless person, who was able to get dentures because he had no teeth from the drug use. Yeah, and like there was just so many other things to finally, find ourselves in all these new spaces after volunteering with foster children and helping them write songs and record. And I would bring Don along. I could see through his initial volunteering position healing, like he really would see himself in these positions. And then all of a sudden there was this like moment where he became this, because he had all these different sides to him, but he just became confident. And he honed in on this message, a couple messages. Then we met you at Celia Center, which was super cool. And it opened up our doors to not just the demographics of those experiencing homelessness, but now we were connecting with people who were adopted and who were maybe in foster care, or who were looking for their birth parents, or in reunion, or had already had reunion, some not so positive, some still positive. Birth parents talking about their loss and their pain and wishing they could find or have or whatever. And then adoptive parents who were nervous and wanting to adopt and not sure, should we have an open adoption? Should we close? Should we tell them when? Should we tell them what should we do? And Dawn would just kind of show up with this hat and like walk into these different things and sort of just say it like it was and break the stigma and just change the frame and throw out the mold and be like, hey, let's shine light on these hard things and just make it a little simple and just go, hey, you know what? And that's what he said in that video we showed earlier. He was just like, someone's got to raise you. And, for whoever did, thank you very much for what you did. Thank you for what you didn't. And you just move on and you become yourself. And he really represented that. And that to me is so empowering. And for someone who had very little and didn't identify him at all. He just was. And then he bravely walked into a world of stability in a way that's uncomfortable. It was hard for him to come and sleep in a bed. He liked to be outside all the time. It was hard. And he did it. And he just, at the very end, he said, I don't want it just to be the guy that was in the gutter that you helped. I want to help you too. And I'm going to do whatever I can to spend the rest of the days here to make sure that you have what you need. And that was so amazing. And so, so
he gave back to you.
Yeah. And I think you're following along with us because we're just people, just like everyone else with their story. And I just feel compelled to share it because I think that Don was special and different. I mean, he encompasses a lot of things, from homelessness to addiction, choosing homelessness, choosing addiction, sometimes choosing prison because it was a bed and food, and being okay with whatever life brought. Because but sometimes on the inside he would say, look, if you had to be around if you had to do what I did and be around where I was, you would do drugs too sometimes. It was like sort of, he would say things like that, like, but he was a survivor. And I relate to that in my own little way. And I feel like we were such a yin and yang. And it was powerful. And I hope to continue to share that with people who are interested and who might be inspired by our partnership. And he did live with me. He was still identified as homeless, but But he did, I brought him in and I made meals every day and made sure he had everything safe, and he let me do that. And he didn't come and go like other people. He was here and then we would move together and then we would come back. And it was 5 years, every minute made the moments of our life. And it was amazing. And I hope everyone
5 years you had together.
I hope everyone gets that opportunity to find that kind of love and symbiotic patience and understanding and care. And if you're struggling with upset feelings and all those just hardships, because life wasn't easy for me either. I had a lot. I mean, I've probably been to every therapist in this town for the free coffee and conversation. So I mean it's not easy, but the work is worth it, because even if the relationships don't work out, the opportunity for growth will always be in every situation, positive or negative, if we want it. And I feel that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Jenni, for sharing all of your story. It's incredible. And you have Homeless, the soundtrack. You do have a documentary that has been made, and it will be coming out next year. And Celia Center will show it at one of our events next year, whether it's a conference or its own special event. We also, Celia Center has support groups. If anyone is compelled, inspired by Jenni's story, and you want to search and have reunion and you want to learn more about that, join an Adopt Salon Constellation support group at Celia Center, where you will participate with adoptive parents, foster parents, adult adoptees, and birth parents in helping you decide if you want to go on that search and find your birth family. So on a last note, Jenni, what would you like to tell everyone who's watching?
Oh,
inspirational.
Still the pandemic. People are trying to get out of their house and live their life now and transition. It's been a really intense over a year and a half, and then we're just upon the holidays. And I think a lot of people have been dealing with loss and transition. And I just want to say thanks for making room for us. And if you ever want to check out my memoir, I'm happy to give it for free. I just have a bunch of copies. You can also get a PDF or whatever. There's a lot of excerpts from Don, and he's funny, and that's fun. So if you're like, just kind of stuck at home still or in transition, it's a fun read. And yeah, look out for Homeless soundtrack. And thank you so much, Jeanette, Celia Center. We've loved you from the beginning. All of your stuff, and your adoptee conferences and the fine arts festival. Like, it's just, there's so much goodness and so much support and community, and it's national. So that's cool. Yeah. And so we look forward to what you're going to be doing next year. I guess I mean me, but I think one is so used to saying. So I feel like,
and you bring Don with you in your experience.
I bring him with me every. Yeah.
Because he's a part of your identity. He's your birth father. He's a part of you. He's made you who you are.
He's made me who I am. He's one of the people that's made me who I am. I saw a really neat, we can close on this. I saw a neat little post in the Facebook feed where it was like, if you're struggling because somebody that you love, be what the things that you love about them. Oops. So I just thought that was neat.
Be what the things you love about them.
Yeah. Be the things.
So in their legacy.
Huh? I just feel like I feel like the book just fell when I was saying something.
For the second time this evening.
I know. I just feel like, are you here?
No, I think Don's here.
He's here. You know what? Why he me that I'm talking too much. He's like, it's done. So anyway, but yeah. So I just love that little saying. If you've lost somebody and you miss them, think of all the things you loved about them, and be those things. Find a way to love people around you more. And I think that's a great sentiment, especially now. So thank you for having me and sharing our story.
I love that. That's beautiful. So please check out Jenni's memoir. It's on Amazon, right? What's the title of it?
Home is Where the Heart Is, an adoption and biological reunion story. This is a prison cell with all the photos of our journey of all the different things.
And your song, Adoption Constellation, where can we find that? If someone wants to hear that again, you've recorded it, right?
Right. So the song about the adoption constellation called Constellations was written with this amazing songwriter named Shane Alexander, who incidentally had a birth mother he didn't know and found later too, which I didn't even know that as we're co-writing. So it was like funny. He's like,
Wow.
let's write this cabin. That's, and also YouTube, whatever. But you know, stuff is out there. And also if you're interested in learning more foster care, adoption, biological reunions, Jeanette, as the Celia Center founder, writes herself, and she's got lots of books on Amazon as well. And if you go to the platform,
yes, so I have some books on Amazon that help support Celia Center, and one of them is my newest children's book, What is Adoption, for kids, and it helps them understand the process, right? Because you and I didn't have a book like this when we were a kid. We didn't really understand what happens and why we were adopted and what we need to focus on mental health wise to support ourselves through the experience of adoption. So if you know anyone that was adopted as a child, they could really benefit from this book, or put it in a public library. You can purchase it and donate it to your public library. So I want to thank everyone for coming and showing their support this evening. And Celia Center is a nonprofit, so we always ask for donations. This is a free event. So you can go to celiacenter.org and donate if you feel inspired, compelled by Jenni's story, so that we can continue to have programs like this in the future. So thank you. We've gained insight, compassion for the birth father, the adopted daughter, and we all want to come together in the constellation and support one another, not be divided, but know that a birth parent may be struggling and there's an adoptee curious about where they come from, and that's more than okay, and help adoptive parents understand why it's so important for an adoptee to find, search, know where they come from, and that actually brings them closer with their adoptive families. And we, Jenni, can have love for all our families.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
We don't have to decide or choose. And when we can have love for all our families, we can, in essence, have love for ourselves and where we come from. And that in and of itself is healing. So thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone. And I hope to wish everyone a happy holidays. Please be safe and take care. And we'll see you next year. Happy New Year, everyone.
Woo! Bye. Thanks.
Good night.
Where are you in my constellation? Have you been searching too? Celestial bodies of creation, each of us longing for the truth. Remnants of these broken planets scattered through the universe, like asteroids of ancient granite, in endless cycles of rebirth. All we are shining stars suspended in a boundless sky. Don't you know we're not too far to hear what's just beneath? Together, you and me. These primal wounds can't keep us from finding home. Cosmic shades of second chances, rays of hope around the sun, making peace with circumstances, hoping for peace for everyone. 'Cause all we are These primal wounds can't keep us from finding home. Inside the telescope where all is magnified, light moves through time and space across the great divide. Beyond the distant starlight gleam, where nothing's what it seems, there is no gravity. 'Cause all we are shining stars suspended in a boundless sky. Don't you know we're not too far to hear what's just beneath? 'Cause all we are shining stars suspended in a boundless sky.